in the air just wide of Dean Jones.
To the fleet.
We can see it right
Here
now.
we are, yes. Looking up there at that site, it's a dominating site of Sydney. The signal station, of course, continually manned since 1790, 24 hours a day. And up to the masthead, we've got the First Fleet heritage flag, followed by the house flag of the fleet, the formation flag, and code flag spelling out welcome. Roy Davies, the signal master, you've done a great service to the fleet there, and what a fabulous welcome it is to see the signal master and his team there, the crew, doing such an honour for the fleet.
Indeed.
There they are, lined up, and I believe they're singing the national anthem.
Another thing, the signal station is actually celebrating an anniversary today as well. 130 years ago, the first electric telegraph line in New South Wales was connected between the signal station and the Royal Exchange in Bridge Street. And that opened 130 years ago today. It's absolutely wonderful. So the signal station's celebrating two things today.
That is amazing. Well, 200 years of history there as well.
Of course, in the very early days of the settlement, it was so vital to get a message into old Sydney town very quickly. So almost in line of sight there, we can see the harbour bridge. Well, on top of Observatory Hill, there were two giant masts about 100 feet high, and the signals were sent from South Head and the messages relayed back to Observatory Hill. This was called the Fort Phillip Signal Station. Of course, people in old Sydney town could tell what ship was off the coast, what cargo she was carrying, and even the name of the vessel. It was a marvellous system.
So therefore they were down there at Circular Quay waiting for it to dock before it even came in through the heads.
You're right, and sometimes it was a signal saying female convicts from Ireland or whatever it might be.
The mind boggles, does it not?
We're looking down towards Observatory Hill now. I think it'd be marvellous if in this bicentennial year we could have those masts at Observatory Hill back again.
Well, you're probably right. But right now, if those masts were there, they would be saying, here comes Soren Larsen, proceeding up the coast quite majestically with her 10 other supporting ships around her. I think we should just point out here that not all of these 11 ships have sailed all the way from England, only 7 of them actually. And the 8th one and all, joined them off the coast of South Africa at Cape Town. But Eye of the Wind, Solway Lass and Lewin were not part of the original fleet, but they've joined them here today to make sure that we do have a correct reenactment of 11 vessels, the correct number of the First Fleet to enter here to Sydney today, and they're certainly worthy companions to the other ships of the First Fleet. Pardon me interrupting you a second, John. I've just been told that we can now cross over to Alex on South Head to tell us what, Alex, we're all ears.
We've got a fantastic sight from here on our outcrop at South Head, and we can, at the minute I was off a couple of across ago, we couldn't see them, but they've just rounded and we can see all of them now, and they're fabulous. I think they deserve a big cooey from everybody up here. Everybody, how about a big cooey out to the First Fleet? Let's see if they can hear us. Okay, 1, 2, 3. No, probably not. I think that wind's a bit strong. But Morris and Greg, what do you think of us up here on the rock? We're giving you a bit of a wave. Can you see us just a little bit to your left as you're going to round into the heads? You're going to be met by millions of people who are here with sun lotion on, hats. We're really getting the full brunt of the sun here on the South Head, but it's going to be a lovely day. And I've got a couple of people here who have come. Not very far, actually, Bellevue Hill. But what time did you get up this morning? You were up at early hours?
6 o'clock, actually. Very early.
Right, and you're going to be here all day?
No, we'll stay here for an hour or so, and then we'll head into the Botanic Gardens and watch the jets fly over and the fireworks and see them come off the First Fleet.
That'll be terrific.
Alex, can I just ask you a question? Yes. The reaction of the general public up there today, many of them up very early this morning, what they're seeing now, as far as they're concerned, was it worth getting up so early and having probably a sleepless night to see what they're now seeing?
I'm sure it is. I'll ask that question. Was it worth getting up so early and seeing this spectacular parade of sail?
Oh, that's for sure. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
And what time were you up? What time did dreaded alarm go?
5 o'clock this morning.
5 o'clock. It was pretty eerie coming out across the water for me when it was dark, but it was worth it with having all the lights of the harbour twinkling. And now, seeing this spectacular vision here, they're a lot smaller than at first I expected. What do you think of seeing these square riggers who have sailed all the way across from England?
Oh, I didn't. They look small until they get really close, and I then I don't know, they probably look big, but from out there they look really small.
Are you going to go and try and visit one of them when they come into Darling Harbour? I think you can actually go.
Probably, but I dread the crowds out there. I think it'd be really crowdy, and I think we'll stay here for the fireworks tonight.
And leave it for the crowds to die down. How do you think you would have coped sailing one of the legs?
Oh, don't know. I think it would have been experience.
Have you ever been out at sea?
Only coming over from England, that was years and years ago.
Oh, really?
That was,
you came out by sea?
Yeah.
Any seasickness?
No.
Well, look, up above us we can see a lot of sky. What are they called? They're jets doing a bit of a spelling test for us. What are they saying? Looks like Greg. Greg will be pleased. What is it saying? It'll be greetings. It's not Greg Granger at all. It's greetings, but it's upside down. I suppose it's pretty hard to tell when you're up there which way is up and which way is down. It's probably a bit like scuba diving. Looks spectacular. Larry's about to zoom onto it. I think he's actually having a look at the ships going to and fro out of the heads. Can we see a crowd on North Head? Don't know, they're a bit speckledy over there. A fabulous Chinese junk coming into view with its red sails. I'm looking for mine. Actually, I've got friends out who are on an 87-year-old gaff rig, which is a square rigger, but it doesn't have as many square rig sails as the First Fleet do. It would be. It's not as big a swell as they expected, but with all those boats passing each other, it's quite hectic. I think a lot of the speedboats don't realise that they do throw around the sailing boats because they don't usually have as big a motors.
I don't know if they'll be leaving a space for the ships to come through.
Yeah, they'll have to get out of the way. I think that's why we've got a bit of the police boats out there patrolling to make way.
Right now, to interrupt you for a second, we have a most incredible shot on our screens at the moment. I'm sure that your view is superb, but ours from the helicopter, and thank you, Doug Hampson, our cameraman up there, for a truly superb shot of this fleet headed by Søren Larsen entering into Sydney Harbour right now.
Look, the adrenaline is pumping. This is, well, I've never seen anything like this before. So many craft out there to welcome the First Fleet. And how appropriate that they've done this great deed. They've commemorated Australia's history and heritage. And now their recognition is there for all to see.
Well, I would hate to try to count the number of small craft that we have in sight at the moment, but it's an incredible number of small craft, as you can clearly see. I have never seen Sydney Harbour quite like that, even on the most exciting start of the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Nothing like this.
The pilot vessels, there's 4 pilot vessels surrounding the fleet as a special salute, and they're all flying the principal flag of the fleet, the heritage flag, which combines the Queen Anne flag of 1788 and the Australian national flag 1988.
Well, those pictures are coming to us now, or that picture, to be correct, is coming to us from South Head, as the vessels begin to round into Sydney Harbour. Indeed, superb shots indeed, and I would imagine, as we discussed earlier, there must be a lot of cameras clicking right at this moment all around the foreshores of Sydney.
This is absolutely superb, and in fact there must be tens of thousands of craft out there today. And of course these conditions, the calm conditions, suit this perfectly. The gods are smiling on us.
Yes, right in the centre there, the Søren Larsen. It's rather hard to pick anybody out at the moment because of the small craft all around. But clearly she is in position, and she is actually quite early at the moment. We weren't anticipating her for probably another 10 minutes or so, which means that they're really ahead of time, which is fine because it gives them plenty of opportunity to get into position. And sort of the greatest advantage is the fact that we do have this very light wind today, which allows them plenty of time to still keep their sails up and control these rather large and fairly heavy vessels, particularly so when the wind is blowing strongly astern of them. And with all this gaggle of small craft all around them, it would be very hard to actually control them in strong winds. But now let's cross over to Søren Larsen, right in the middle of it all. Maurice Parker, it must be just unbelievable.
It's absolutely fantastic, Roger. I can't believe it. There are spectator craft everywhere. Some are getting a bit close, as the pilots here don't like too much, but otherwise it's an absolutely fantastic sight. We can now start to look down the harbour and see how many, well, it's sort of like a smorgasbord of masts out there. I can't believe it. I have with me Tony Curtis, who actually shot the Rites of Passage special. Tony, a big day for you, really, isn't it?
Fantastic day, mate. This is unbelievable. 22,000 miles, I think 10 months since we left home, and my first day off, and to be steering the boat into Sydney Harbour, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just fantastic.
Now, if I'm right, your ancestors were here 200 years ago today, is that correct?
200 years ago today, my uncle Billy sailed in here on the Lady Penrhyn. He was the quartermaster, yeah.
Kind of unusual to have a cameraman on board a voyage like this.
It's been a long one, yeah. I don't know if too many other people have spent 8 months shooting boats sailing across the world, but I wouldn't change places with anyone at the moment.
Is there a sort of a sense of sadness as well as you arrive into Sydney, or are you just really looking forward to getting home?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing friends and family again, but there is certainly a sense of sadness because the family spirit that we've built up on this fleet has been fantastic, and to think that a lot of them will be leaving and we won't be seeing them again, certainly there is a lot of very mixed feelings.
Thanks very much, Tony. Oh, we have the Commodore with us now. Excuse me, Commodore, what exactly is happening now?
Well, just a minute, I'll tell you. There's a certain amount of chaos going on. Ships everywhere, and another square-rigged ship just coming out. But there's yachts everywhere, and we're just approaching a position where we have to turn on the leads entering Sydney Heads.
Commodore, I guess it's a great moment for you now because we do have 11 ships in the fleet.
Well, it's very nice to have 11 after trying for so hard. We've even got a 12th one appearing, so that's good.
It's kind of like Pitt Street on a bad day, isn't it?
Well, I'm not so familiar with Pitt Street on a bad day, but certainly traffic jam in London is similar, over.
Thank you very much, Commodore. We also have with us David, our radio man. It's a big day for you as well, David.
Hello, yes, marvellous, isn't it? Fantastic to be here.
Bit emotional?
Yeah, it's like a Sydney Hobart, but going the wrong way.
Are you surprised at all the pleasure craft out here rather than in the harbour?
Yeah, I thought there'd be more inside. I mean, as I say, it's like a Sydney Hobart in reverse. We're going in and we're going to leave them inside, I think. But it's marvellous to be here. There's another one coming out there. I don't know what that is.
It's absolutely fantastic out here. The mood is really sort of reaching fever pitch at the moment, Roger. I wish you could be out here with us enjoying the sunshine and enjoying this fantastic spectacle.
Morris, I wish I could be out there with you, quite frankly, but since you are there, tell us, what reaction are you getting from the spectator fleet? I mean, are they getting very excited or they're being very passive? Tell us about that.
They're very excited, and they're just absolutely fantastic to the crew on board here because they're waving to everybody. It makes the crew feel as if they're achieving something. They're waving back and they're cooing, and also we're throwing water bombs still, but don't tell anybody about that bit. But the spectator craft is, I guess, very excited. And I think there's also that sort of awe, like, is that what they were really like? Is that what those ships were like? It's quite an incredible scene.
Well, they certainly were, and thank you for those comments, Morris. They're right on the knocker, I think. That's exactly, I'm sure, what they are feeling out there at the moment. Come back to you a bit later on. Meantime, we'd like to say thank you to you, thank you to David Eagleton, and also to the Commodore, Mike Kitchener, and also to Tony Curtis. And it's great to have you back with us once again, Tony, and thanks for the superb photographs that you've been taking and the shots that you've been providing for our telecast over the last few months. We'll be back with all that's happening after this.
Sometimes, even the best laid plans can go astray, which is why Australia Post has introduced Intelpost.
Intelpost?
Intelpost is a worldwide fax and delivery service that allows people with fax machines to fax their important documents and plans to people without fax machines. And Intelpost guarantees delivery to almost anywhere in Australia in 2 hours.
Intelpost? Oh, you kick it!
And anywhere in the world within a day. Intelpost, the worldwide fax and delivery service from Australia Post.
I'm going to bite on my chomp.
Chomp.
Munch all the chalk.
Chomp.
Chew that smooth caramel too.
Chomp.
And now Chomp has a mate. It's joined by the great tasting strawberry chomp for you.
Chomp. New strawberry. Chomp. New strawberry. Chomp, 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 chomp. Choose the chomp that's right for you. Chomp's are 30 cents.
Now for some real fun, who you gonna call?
I know they're out there.
Get him with the ghost zapper.
Okay. No way, Master Norman. Zap, got him. Chomp was behind you and he looked kind of hungry. That was close.
We got a problem in here.
Oh, no.
It gooped us. Well, I think you got all of them.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Get the real Ghostbusters toys from Kenner.
I'd like a Dolomite account from outer space, please.
We make saving fun and easy, whatever the amount. A dollar might go further in a Dolomite account at the Commonwealth Bank.
Which bank?
Australian Airlines invite you to Channel 7's Aussie Picnic at Bicentenary Park on Sunday, February 14th. It's a free fun day for all the family. Be there for the Australian Airlines celebrity cricket match from 11 a.m. Then join the crowd for a live concert featuring Mondo Rock, the Fabulous Singlets, Vince Sorrenti and all your favourite Channel 7 personalities. Channel 7's Aussie Picnic, Sunday, February 14th at Bicentenary Park. It's free.
8:30 tonight, Beyond 2000 returns with a special report. Eternal Youth. And Ian Finlay delves into a subject that has fascinated man for centuries.
Somewhere in the distant future, we may know enough about the aging process to turn it off forever.
With the power of technology, scientists are understanding more and more about the human body.
Take the right chemicals, and it may be possible to live forever.
Eternal Youth, when Beyond 2000 returns, 8:30 tonight on 7.
And welcome, Australia, on a sparkling, beautiful day here in Sydney Harbour on this our 200th birthday. Magnificent indeed, and particularly we would like to say to the people of South Australia, you are certainly well and truly represented here this morning, because one of your particular ships is the One and All, which of course comes directly from South Australia. And incidentally, just for a moment, these pictures are being taken from the Bounty, with the longboat astern of her. Can you tell us something about the longboat again, John?
Well, first of all, isn't it great to see the Australian flag flying there, and so proud it is. The longboat there, see, is beautifully constructed. And we mentioned earlier on when Bligh was thrown off the Bounty, he sailed a vessel like that for over 2,000 nautical miles with a large crew on board that little boat. It's fabulous to see it out there and to commemorate it that way.
Just beautiful. Now, a moment ago, we were talking about South Australia for a specific reason. I'm sure that all our viewers in South Australia pricked up their ears when I said that, because your particular ship, the beautiful training ship One and All, is indeed one of the 11 ships coming in here today. She actually met up with the fleet that had come out from England off Cape Town. She is truly a beautiful ship, and particularly for all of you in South Australia, let's have a look at her right now and some of the statistics about her. One and All is a dream come true for South Australian historian John Young, who yearned to teach the modern world about Pacific history, migration patterns and traditional sailing skills through practical experience. And after nearly 10 years of struggle by Young and his enthusiastic supporters, the One and All was built in South Australia. She was completed and underwent sea trials in April 1987 and made a Rio de Janeiro arrival to join the reenactment fleet on the 28th of August. And on this, her maiden passage, the One and All has an all-Australian crew, most of whom assisted in her construction. The ship is under the command of one of the fleet's great characters and finest sailors, Canberra's Colin Kestevan, who can usually be found at the wheel wearing his favourite spotted pyjama pants and his skull and crossbones T-shirt. That's a bit different. She's the only locally built ship in the fleet and was the first Australian vessel to join. Built by the South Australian community as a sail training ship for the youth of that state, she will return there to begin work after the completion of the voyage in June 1988. And our congratulations to One and All and to the people of South Australia. Indeed, you should be very proud indeed of your beautiful ship from South Australia. Well, now, apparently Greg on board the Bounty has a birthday cake. A birthday cake? Yes, he does. We can't see it at the moment. Greg, where is it?
We've got a birthday cake directly in front of us. Australia Post has donated this wonderful bicentennial present. And before we begin the cutting procedure, Robert Owens, who's one of the owners of the Bounty, one of the men that have sponsored the ship all the way from London. You've got 3 cheers for one of those other long tall ships.
Yes, we certainly have, Bounty crew. 3 cheers for the tall ships that are with us. Bounty, hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray!
Also, one of the sponsors of this ship, one of the sponsors of the entire reenactment from London, has been Australia Post, and a brief ceremony here, I believe, from the man from Australia Post.
Thank you, Mr. Owen, Captain Small. We are proud, Australia Post is proud to have been associated with this historic voyage of the Bounty. It marks the association of the males with these ships over many, many years. And in token of our appreciation, we would like to present this Australian birthday cake to the captain and crew of the Bounty.
Righto, cut away. Who gets the first slice?
I think I do.
If you can manage to hold it, cut it and eat it at the same time, we'll actually film you doing that. That presentation from Australia Post, we have a return presentation from Robert Owen.
Australia Post, on behalf of Bounty's compliment, I'd like you to receive from our master the plaque of Bounty, which has the England lion where she was built, the Kiwi where we found her, America where she was built, the Eagle where we bought her, and Australia where she's operated. Captain Small, would you be so kind?
On behalf of the ship's owners and the ship's company, it gives me great pleasure to present Australia Post with this ship's plaque.
Thank you very much, Captain.
And that brief ceremony taking place right here on the Bounty, live at 9:51, only 40 minutes before we're due to enter Sydney Harbour here at the moment. We're directly off South Head. Alex and Michael waiting to throw us their croissants there. Thank you very much. A huge armada of spectator craft ringing the vessel at the moment. You could almost step from one boat to another. In fact, most of this fleet are sailing in the same direction, but occasionally we get some smart Alec that actually takes his boat up in the opposite direction, and as a result, there are many, many near misses. In fact, we've seen many boats actually collide with each other today, not causing a great amount of damage, but certainly nudging into each other, because we estimate that there is in excess of 1,000 boats, spectator craft, out here in the water off Sydney Heads, and that's before we actually enter the heads in 40 minutes' time. Roger, a few minutes ago you were talking about the longboat, which is being trailed off the back of us here. The longboat, in fact, is being crewed by Mike Evans. Of the longboat, one of the descendants. One of the descendants there. And up the front there, the boy, Keith. Give us a wave, Keith. And they're being towed into Sydney Harbour at the moment as a precise reenactment. This would have been the same length longboat, 20 feet long, that would have carried all those original convicts to shore when the vessels originally landed and weighed anchor, dropped anchor in Farm Cove, which we should be doing in about 1.5 hours' time. So for the moment, a great spectacle here on Sydney Harbour, as Morris has been describing. We have cameras all around the harbour to capture this massive reenactment. A strong southwesterly at the moment pushing us up towards North Head, and in about 15 minutes' time we'll do a turn to take us directly down Sydney Harbour. But for the moment, Roger, back to you.
Thank you, Greg, for that description. And you're talking about the ships and the boats outside Sydney Harbour. I can assure you, once you get inside, you just will not believe it. Absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like it, and I spent a few years with the pleasure of sailing up and down this harbour. I've never seen anything like this, and I think that you're in for the welcome of a lifetime. And thank you for your comments, and of course with that cake you've upstaged everybody. We're all dying of hunger here now for a piece of that cake. You think you can fly a piece in from the helicopter somehow? Anyway, to get back to business for just a moment, I'd like to speak to Dr. Alan Frost again for just a moment to tell us something about what it must have been like for Europeans living at the end of the 18th century to contemplate a voyage to Terra Australis.
Oh, I think it's very difficult for us to be able to recapture that feeling. It's one of the virtues of historical reenactments, such as the First Fleet, that it enables the modern world to recapture some sense of the awesomeness of the venture. When the First Fleet got to the Cape of Good Hope, only really James Cook had sailed that way before to New South Wales. He'd sailed through the southern Indian Ocean to Tasmania and then across into the Pacific. So that Cook was the only real model for the First Fleet people. And the officers had a very well-developed sense that they were leaving the world when they left the Cape of Good Hope. that they had left civilization behind, that before them was mystery, the unknown. And they wondered whether they'd return.
In other words, it's almost like saying that it was to them what landing on the moon has been to us.
Oh, very much so. But of course, they didn't have the communications that space travelers have.
And one second question, which is pretty important, I think, how do you think the Aborigines of this nation would have survived, or reacted, I should say, to the sighting of these white men?
Probably with as much awe as the Europeans came. The Aborigines at first wondered whether the Europeans were spirits or human. They found out after a few days that they were people, but they were puzzled by people wearing clothes. And then, as the settlement developed, the Aborigines came to understand that the Europeans behaved much as they did in terms of catching fish, hunting kangaroos, living in communities.
Well, Alan, thank you for your comments. It must have been an incredible time. If anyone could have somehow been there with our knowledge of today, looking over their shoulders to see exactly what did happen. And we shall come back to more of this great reenactment day after this commercial.
Every time you pump Ampol petrol into your tank, you're pumping money back into Australia, back into the research and development of ways to help other Australians, like some 500 prawn fishermen up north, whose catches are worth $30 million in export sales every year. They needed an oil that would dramatically cut down engine deposits, while still handling all the big power.
Accompanying this, the first reenactment fleet to this greatest day in our history here at Sydney, to tie up at 11:45 this First Fleet, the completion of the reenactment voyage from England, 8 months and 1 week. It ends at Farm Cove at 11:45 this morning, and that is the sort of reception which this fleet is receiving.
And of course the scene is being watched there not only by 20 helicopters, I believe, but also the airships are up top. You could probably, well, walk across the water by stepping on boats there. I think at the moment it's unbelievable.
Obviously, the moment of truth is going to be when this vast armada of small craft accompanying the First Fleet into the harbour meet up with those already in the harbour.
Yes, there might be a little bit of congestion, to say the least. However, I've got great faith there in the Royal Volunteer Coast Patrol and the Maritime Services Board and all the other bodies, the police, that are controlling those craft, and they're doing a fabulous job. I must say the pilots that are escorting the fleet, the 4 pilot vessels, it brings to mind that in the early days of the colony, they used to sail out in whaleboats or row out in whaleboats to the ships coming into port, and it was a race to get there. The first one got the prize.
Indeed. And there we see the camera has now zoomed in to the flagship, Soren Larsen, zoomed in there past North Head. And what a spectacular view we do have here from our helicopter.
It's only blowing a few knots, which is, well, a very good thing for today because it's keeping the spectator craft in position. No one has to speed anywhere because they're all getting a very good view. And look at that sun glistening on the water.
You couldn't have dialed a better day if you'd tried.
It's a pity that Captain Cook never entered the harbour.
That's an interesting situation. I wonder why that was. Why did he never enter the harbour? He named it Port Jackson, I know, after an official, but that's all I know about that.
Yes, unfortunately, he did pass the harbour by, and I'm sure that if he had ventured in, his diaries would have noted this great harbour, and of course, instead of Phillip going to Botany Bay, he would have come straight to Sydney Harbour.
Well, at the present time, the fleet is still fairly well spread out there. They certainly have not yet, clearly they have not yet got into position, and not wishing to be a doomsday man, but I am a little bit concerned as to how they're going to be able to get into position because of that tremendous clutter, and I say that in a respectful way, a clutter of small craft all around them. A beautiful shot there of North Head as the craft, thousands of them, slowly move in with the fleet.
Looking at the ships of the fleet reenactment, when you consider the actual size of the original ships, in most cases the original ships were on average smaller than these vessels. So the fleet, here's the Bounty, there's a magnificent scene of the Bounty there, all sails up, or most sails up, looking fantastic.
Well, let's cross over now, shall we, to An interview with some of the crew on the deck of the Soren Larsen. Morris, it must be unbelievable down there.
Forget the deck, Roger. We're at the on the bowsprit at the moment. How I got here, God only knows. I had with me Sam once again, who led the choir before. Mate, what an amazing feeling out here.
It certainly is. It's absolutely fantastic. It's bigger than I could ever have hoped to imagine it. Thank you, Sydney, and thank you everybody who came down to see us today. It's something else. Yeah.
It is absolutely incredible, Roger. There's spectator craft everywhere. They're tooting their horns. There's crowds all along the foreshores of the harbour. It's just amazing. Did you really think about this big?
I thought about it many times, but you can only think about things sometimes, but to experience it is something completely different. And just looking around me now, there's hundreds of thousands of people lined on the shoreline. There's thousands of boats in the harbour. There's people on the decks and with balloons and all sorts of things. It really is a sight worth 1,000 smiles and laughs. I reckon it's fantastic.
I guess it's moments like these you need minties, I guess. Mike Carlton from 2GB will be actually on air very soon from the Soren Larsen, so we're very much a communications flagship today. But it is so incredible, Roger. It's hard to put into words. I can't believe it myself.
Morris, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
We're having difficulty of working out exactly where you are. Can you give us your position? And I know it's somewhere within the vicinity of Sydney Harbour, but where?
I'll just try and work that out with Sam. Sam, whereabouts are we exactly now, do you know?
We're just actually passing North Head. We're about, I suppose, about 300 metres through the heads at the moment. We're heading up towards Manly Cove on the right-hand side, or the starboard side, and Middle Head is just off to our port side over this way here, and before too long we'll actually be turning downwind, sorry, I should say against the wind, heading up towards the harbour towards Farm Cove, and I think at that point we'll have to take the sails in because the wind unfortunately hasn't blown northeast today, so we will be actually trying to sail at the harbour, but we'll have to motor most of the way, I'd say, unfortunately. But we're just inside the harbour. It's a fantastic feeling having come 21,000 miles to be here at last. It really is fantastic.
Well,
Roger, I hope that puts you in the picture.
Yes, it does indeed, thank you. And I'm intrigued to hear about what's going to happen with the dropping of the sails, which of course is a bit of a pity. But I'm informed by Greg that he's quite sure that in about 15 minutes' time, the wind is going to change direction. We'll come back after this commercial break.
Every time you pump Ampol petrol into your tank, you're pumping money back into helping some special Australians, like Malcolm Douglas, filmmaker and explorer extraordinaire. For many years, Malcolm's been producing his own unique brand of television documentaries, so you and other watchers all over Australia can learn about some fascinating parts of our north you'd most likely never get to see, like the gorge country of the Kimberleys, the unusual wildlife of the Great Sandy Desert, and the Aboriginal culture of Arnhem Land. And on these expeditions, Malcolm has relied on just one oil company to keep him going, both on land and on water. But while we're delighted with our long association, we're still not quite ready to accept Malcolm's invitation to lunch. With the Australian company, you're not just buying petrol, you're buying a stake in Australia.
It's great to have your company here today for what is a truly incredible experience and an incredible program to be associated with. I said that because I was just going to say to you I had the pleasure of being with you in Western Australia only a few short weeks ago, it seems, for the arrival of the fleet there into Fremantle, and now here we have them today here in Sydney Harbour. It's a great pleasure to have you with us today, and we hope that you do very much enjoy following all that goes on here, because you sure are very much a part of what is happening here today. You're part of Australia, and we're very pleased to have you with us, I can assure you. But before we go any further, let's have a news update, shall we, from Susie. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Good morning. About 500 Aboriginal protesters have confronted a cordon of police in inner Sydney. The cordon was thrown up to prevent the demonstrators marching past Hyde Park. The activists started their march at Redford early this morning and had intended to take their protest to Circular Quay. The Aborigines are protesting against what they claim is the white invasion of Australia. Earlier today, the commemoration ceremony honoured the foundation of New South Wales and was interrupted by Aborigines. A few activists shouted at Premier Barry Unsworth as he addressed a crowd at Circular Quay. The Aboriginal protests are taking place as the majority of Sydney-siders are gathering on harbour foreshores to await the sail past of the tall ships and the First Fleet Re-enactment. Most spectators began settling into cherished patches of lawn in the early hours of this morning. Motorists have been avoiding the expected trouble spots like the Sydney Harbour Bridge and taking public transport instead. Sydney's bicentennial birthday weather, a clear sunny day ahead, Roger.
Thank you, Susie, very much indeed. And so there you have it in Western Australia. The weather conditions are perfect, as Susie has just told us, and it is indeed an incredible day, as we're going to show you as the day continues. But let's cross now, shall we, to Middle Head here in Sydney, which is a superb vantage point for seeing exactly what is happening. Michael Horrocks, tell us all about it.
Well, Roger, it's fabulous out here. We've all just caught sight of the fleet, all lining up out there, and I've got my little brolly. It's a strange atmosphere out here. It's exciting, but it's very quiet. Everybody's just looking and taking photographs, looking through binoculars. They're not all running about and cheering. I suppose it's a little bit of a different atmosphere than it is on the boat. But what do you think of it?
I think it's just wonderful, and I'm so happy to have my family up here from Melbourne and Wagga.
Oh, really? They've come up for the event?
That's right, yes. We're playing the children up, and they're having a lovely time.
Well, that sounds fabulous. People have come from all over Australia. I've run into people from New Zealand, from Holland, obviously from England, all sorts of people, and they're all having a wonderful time. And everyone is just looking. They're not talking, they're just looking. And it really is an amazing atmosphere, Roger. Back to you.
Michael, how would you describe the reason for that, or can you? Why are they just looking? Is it just unbelievable?
Well, it's like the culmination of a long... There's been so much press about it and so much talk about it that it's... everyone's seeing it now. Everyone's just trying to take it all in, I think. And it's not much use jumping up and down about it. It's just a matter of sitting there and taking it all in.
That's a point well made, and thank you very much, Michael. And let's go across now and see how Alex is feeling about the whole situation on South Head. What's it like over there, Alex?
What? Our position from South Head now. We're going to lose them, I think, in about an hour, but we've still got a fantastic view. They're coming past North Head, and we've got a couple of girls who followed me from our vantage spot on the rock. What do you think of it all, girls? You had a few words to say earlier.
Great.
It's terrific, isn't it? And you've been up at all hours this morning, brought your dad with you, who's had some fantastic binoculars. He was showing me we could see the crowd. There are lots of people. It's very crowded on those ships on the First Fleet, as it is here, actually. We can see the silhouettes of all their heads against the glare on the water. And Soren Larsen, being the first one in, can probably see what a fantastic waiting party they've got waiting for them to come further up there. And I hope that a lot of the ships are going to clear a bit of a path for them when they come in. I think a bit of an adrenaline would be running in all their veins as they see all these people very excited to see them. Little girls in hats here warding off the sun. We're going to get very burnt, I think, but that we don't care. It's fabulous to be here. Still the jets are skywriting above us. Greetings, which is fabulous. But there are a few brave kayakers out on the water, as you might have seen. I hope they're not going to get too tousled about in the wash. And helicopters are still zooming around. Back to Roger. Roger.
Alex, thank you very much indeed. And there's a superb shot from the helicopter of the rest of the fleet now preparing to come in. We've got Soren Larsen clearly inside, and a number of the others, Tucker Thompson, our Spannon, one and all, and Marina, plus the rest of them should certainly be coming into position now. How far out do you think they'd be, John?
Well, they're not very far out at all. I think that was North Head, yes, North Head we just saw. And of course, they're coming in two parallel lines. So this will make it fairly spectacular. And let's hope that they can hold their sail up as long as possible going up the harbour.
Well, clearly they're in position, or some of them, because there's Tucker Thompson just on the left edge of our screen at the moment, in the correct position that she should be in. And on the other side of her, we should have our Spannon, also aft of Soren Larsen, which we see there right now. We told our viewers something about Tucker Thompson before, because she is the smallest vessel here. I think you were saying to me earlier, weren't you, John, that she is even smaller, or I beg your pardon, you told me that the actual original ships were smaller than that, some of them.
Yes, I did. In fact, you mentioned the supply at the same time you spoke about Tucker Thompson. Well, the original supply in the First Fleet was only 70 foot long, so she was some 26 foot wide. This one's almost 90 feet long, the Tucker Thompson.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that could be one and all there, behind the Tucker Thompson.
Yes.
I think that is probably right.
It is.
Now, behind her again, we should have Anna Christina, which should be easy to spot.
Yes, Anna Christina.
There's Amarina there at the moment.
Amarina, yes,
Amarina,
the luxury
which is in position.
Vessel of the fleet.
Now, behind her, I can't quite see what... there's Anna Christina with her red-coloured sails.
And her distinctive green hull.
Beautiful craft. She is the oldest actual original vessel there. She's over 100 years old. A beautiful craft.
110 foot long, she is.
110 feet long. We're seeing at the present time the left-hand or the port-hand column of ships coming in to the harbour at the moment. We're not yet seeing clearly, and we certainly can't see it from that shot, the other side, the ships of the other side, the starboard line of craft entering Sydney Harbour. And the more I look at that shot, the less I can believe it.
It is. It's phenomenal. There must be thousands and thousands of boats out there today welcoming the fleet. And it's congratulations to the Commodore. The Captain Kitchenside, Commodore of the fleet, has performed a feat that can be equated in some ways to what Philip did with the original fleet. He's brought those ships 20,000 miles from the UK to Australia, and he's done it safely. Congratulations, well done.
Yes, indeed. And looking at what we see at the moment, and the comment that Alex made a little while ago about the large numbers of people crowding around the foreshores, it is breathtaking when you realise what is yet to come, because of the people that are actually in the harbour, not just on the water, but around the foreshores. And I'm quite sure that as we make our way slowly, and I mean slowly, up harbour towards the climax at Farm Cove, this congestion is going to increase, not just on the water, but on the foreshores as well.
Look, this scene will be seen right round the world, and what a proud moment it is for Australia, and particularly the men, the crew, the passengers on board that fleet.
Yes, it is quite unbelievable, slowly making their way forward up the harbour, and we'll come back in just a moment for some more incredible mouth-watering shots. So won't you stay with us at the 7 Network, wherever you may be in Australia.
Sometimes, even the best laid plans.
To this day, when the Sirius, which of course is the sister ship of the Bounty, sailed in here to begin our European history. But now let's cross over once again to the flagship of the fleet, Soren Larsen, because Morris Parker has with him indeed the man of the moment, and I'm sure he's got tears in his eyes. I'm talking about Jonathan King. And Jonathan King and Morris Parker, it's all yours.
Jonathan, how do you feel now? Come on.
Incredibly humbled. It's an honour and a privilege to be an Australian. I'm just so grateful to my fellow Australians. I want to say thank you, Australia. Thank you, Australia, for putting the First Fleet on. Thank you to the people of Australia for making it possible. Thanks for coming out here and meeting us. What a day for Australia. What a uniting day. Everybody must be proud to be an Australian. We set out to reenact the voyage of the First Fleet, but we seem to have made history ourselves. We're being greeted like conquering heroes, and that's a very humbling experience. And I think it shows maybe we passed the test. It's certainly drawn attention. It's drawn attention to the incredible achievement of the First Fleet 200 years ago. And I think we probably put on a history lesson to everybody in Australia and even around the world. I think it's probably Australia's biggest day.
Did your heart stop as we came through the heads and you saw it all in front of you?
I could not conceive. I would never have been outrageous enough to dream up a welcome like this. This is unbelievable. Have you ever seen anything like this?
Never in my entire life have I seen something like this.
What could you compare this to? An Olympic Games, the opening of the Opera House? There's just nothing. This is Australia's finest hour. And yet we, the people, put the fleet on. If nothing else, this shows that the people of Australia love their heritage, respect it, and want to honour it. If Governor Phillip could see us now,
he would weep. He put so much, as did all the first fleeters, into sailing in here 200 years ago. They put so much into building this country. Now they would weep. They would be deeply honoured.
Do you feel like weeping yourself? I mean, do you feel that?
Of course, of course. I'm numb. I'm numb. I don't deserve this, but it's such a reward to the hundreds of people that have sailed these ships around the world. We've come across the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean. We've lost Henrik Nielsen on the way, but what a welcome.
This is it really, isn't it?
Well, coming through the heads, this is the rebirth of Australia. And as Bob Hawke says, this is the official beginning of the Bicentenary. So it's a happy birthday, Australia.
But I don't think we could top it, do you?
Oh, how could you?
You can't, can
how
you?
could you top this?
No,
seriously.
Not a hope in hell, really.
This is like a dream. I mean, it really is. There would be 5,000 boats around us. God's turned on the sunshine. God protected us the whole way across. The oceans let us through. We were blessed. He must have wanted it to happen. And I just think it's just the most wonderful blessing to be an Australian in Australia today. And if this doesn't make us proud and united as a people, then nothing will. I think it's a great start to our birthday party.
Well, I think, Roger, that sort of says it all. Any questions you'd like to ask Jonathan while I can hear you?
Sorry to take so long, Morris. I was
That's all
just
right.
getting my microphone switched back on again.
Sorry, mate.
All of us here, if you can hear me now, we'd just like to congratulate Jonathan. John would like to congratulate him, John Vaughan, and certainly Brian McDonald for what he has done. And would you please give him our best wishes? And if there's one sentence that he would like to say, if he can sum it up and just tell the countless millions of people who are listening to him right now, what would he say in one sentence?
Roger would like to know if you could say one... Oh! Can you put it into one sentence, though, for everybody who's watching? One sentence.
Well, I've got a really deep love for my country and my history. I have a passion for what has made Australia the country it is today, and I want everyone to share that. And if we can share that, we can go on to the future and make a new beginning as a united nation. And look at it, we're all united here today. This is the start of our 3rd century of European settlement. Let's go into the future as the great nation we really are.
Well, from all of us at Channel 7, Jonathan, thank you for your time. Thank you for everything.
Well, thanks Channel 7 and thanks Australia.
Well, Roger, I think I can't really say anything else up there, can I? I'm speechless myself. Back to you.
Thank you, Morris, and thank you, Jonathan. I guess it was impossible to put into one sentence what you were thinking, and I'm not surprised or either. Now, John, you'd like to say something about that, I know.
Look, I'd love to stand up and give 3 cheers. I think Jonathan has dreamt of this since birth. He's made his dream come true. He's reenacted Australian history, made it come alive. But not only has he done that, he's also created history. He is now one of our great historical figures. Well done, Jonathan. You deserve every congratulation that you're just about to receive.
And Brian?
Oh, I feel the same way. I really can't talk at the moment. I'm building up inside as well. It's a very, very proud moment.
Thank you, Brian, also. Well, that's what we think about it, Jonathan, and congratulations from everybody right across Australia, because you're the fellow that really thought of it and somehow managed to force it right the way through. And here we are, this incredible occasion here this morning. And I think no matter where you may be, whether you are in Sydney or in Perth or in Adelaide, Darwin or Brisbane, whether you're in a small little tiny outback town somewhere in Australia, surely it must be a moment to be proud of. It's great to be Australian.
Look at that Australian flag at the masthead. It's so appropriate that we pan on that shot on the ship there. And I must say to Jonathan that he inspired the design of certain flags for the fleet, including the heritage flag, and how accurately it sums up what Jonathan's been doing and what he's achieved. The Queen Anne flag of 1788, the national flag today, combined together. 200 years of great Australian history.
And there we see clearly the Bounty with those topsails like that, slowly moving in still into the harbour. We saw there the foreshores of Manly in the corner there.
Manly, incidentally, was one of the first places within Sydney Cove to be given the name, and it came from the very Manly Aborigines there. They came down and waded into the water to the boats and met Governor Phillip and showed a very manly attitude. And that's where it gets its name.
Thank you, Brian. Eye of the Wind we see on our screen right now. Something about her. She's privately owned. In the past 11 years, apparently, she has notched up 250,000 sea miles, and she's carried 5,000 voyages around the world. Her film appearances include Blue Lagoon, Taipan and Savage Island, so she is indeed a film star. Although she has only actually sailed from Fremantle on this particular occasion, she's a pretty fast ship due to her very large sail area and a well-designed hull. And over that 250,000 sea miles that she has travelled, she's been around the world twice. She's a beautiful-looking ship.
Have you ever seen so many beautiful sailing ships in such a small space?
I guess not.
Look at the Bounty going past there. It really is quite an emotional moment for all Australians to see something like this right here in Sydney Harbour. The contrast between the new and the old. A luxury cruiser and an ancient-looking sailing ship.
Well, we keep on thinking that we can't produce more superlative pictures of what is going on down there on Sydney Harbour, but every time we seem to come back to this wide shot from the helicopter, it gets better and better, and the ships are becoming closer and closer. All the more reason for us to be thankful there's only a very slight wind at the moment. What a superb shot there of the Bounty being escorted in very slowly down into Sydney Harbour.
The perfect salute. So many people turning out. Millions watching on television. Every vantage point on the shore taken, and everyone enjoying themselves thoroughly. I note there that the longboat is still being towed. At Portsmouth, they gave a replica of Philip's gig to the city of Sydney, very similar to that longboat. And of course, Philip did all his early exploration of Sydney Harbour in such a small boat.
I think he'd have had difficulty exploring Sydney Harbour with all these craft on it, wouldn't he?
He probably would have considered it too dangerous to go out.
He'd have probably been right, actually. These pictures are coming to us right now from Sydney Head, South Head, I should say, not Sydney Head, South Head. And there again is your longboat.
Yes, beautifully built craft too. Of course, Philip's gig had two small masts and carried small sails, so when the wind was favourable, they could save their rowing power and have a little sail round.
She still appears to be sailing relatively well at the moment as she's preparing, I presume, to turn into the harbour, but obviously, because of unless the wind direction has changed, she's going to have a bit of a problem once she's turned right into the harbour, because she'll be sailing directly into the wind, which any sailor will tell you is virtually impossible with a square-rigged ship.
Well, we're getting those pictures right now, and the people have got their cameras out. They've got the scene that they wanted. And it's a credit, too, to the seamanship of each skipper on board that they can manoeuvre these craft, these awkward craft, virtually on the turn of a coin.
You see her flying there, John, the Queen Anne flag, do we not?
Yes, the Queen Anne Red Ensign. It has two crosses, St. George and St. Andrew in the Union Jack section. And, of course, that particular flag was the original flag of the Bounty and most of the ships of the First Fleet, so it's most appropriate we see it here today. That flag, I might add, was used for an ABC series on Captain Cook, and it's been recycled and now back flying. It's 18 feet long.
Can you believe that all those little tiny white spots on that screen, every one is a ship or a boat or a small craft of some sort, and it contains 2 or 3 or more people?
I can only believe it because I can see it. It is a sight I don't think we'll ever see again.
Well, right now, at this particular moment, with another magnificent sailing ship crossing before us, we're going back to the ship that I keep on calling the star of the whole show, the Bounty, and over to you, Greg.
Well, good morning again, and what a celebration we're having here today. You know how you normally look at boat moorings all around the harbour and you see dozens of boats that seem to sit there all year long and no one ever uses them? I can guarantee you today there will not be a boat on its mooring in Sydney. They're all out here. We estimate several thousand boats on Sydney Harbour. How there haven't been more serious collisions, we don't know, because we witnessed one quite bad collision at the back here. We had a yacht coming up, a portable, one of those blow-up dinghies, cut across its bow, and the yacht hit it. A midship almost sank the life raft, and overboard went one of the passengers, a young boy, who was picked up by the yacht. That drama lasted about 5 minutes. Spectators not only on the water, but also right along the harbour foreshore, and in fact on that grandstand that was erected especially for today up there on Dobroyd Point. Those people paid $45 each to watch this spectacle, while there are thousands of other people who are enjoying the same view for nothing. Now what we have at the moment is the Bounty boys. They've sailed all the way from Sydney to London, and now they're back in Sydney again. You boys must be overwhelmed that you've rejoined Sydney here today.
Oh yeah, it's a great day. Excellent feeling. 33,000 miles.
Yeah. In fact, you have a little war dance you'd like to do for us.
Yeah, right. Ready?
Just a quick one.
We're the Bounty Boys.
That's what one here at sea does too, obviously, Roger. But you're the purser on board, also the third mate. What sort of an emotional feeling are you experiencing right now coming into Sydney?
Satisfaction, job well done, and glad it's all over. It's been a wonderful time. It's been a wonderful trip. It's been challenging, and hope we don't have to do it again, but it's been great.
You've sailed all the way, in fact, from Tahiti, so you've been here longer than a year on board this Bounty. It almost must feel like home to you.
Yeah, it is my home. It's been my home for the last 18 months, and it'll be a sad day when 5 of us guys have to split up.
You're splitting up now?
Yeah, we're splitting up here in Sydney.
Right, we have a situation with the rest of you. How are you all feeling at the moment?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
It's great. I mean, look at the harbour. Have you ever seen anything like it? I haven't. I mean, it's just packed. I mean, you can't even see the edges of it. There's so many boats here.
Of course, this is the highlight. This is the day of spectacle. But what was the one of the worst moments? You had that Heinrich Nielsen, of course, fall overboard and drown. That must have been a sad day for you.
Yeah, and I wasn't feeling too good this morning when I woke up. That was one of the lowlights of it all.
It was the celebrations last night unduly. Roger, we'll cross back to you. We can tell you that we're still getting a southwesterly. I did not promise you a change of wind, simply some good sailing tactics by the people steering the ship at the moment, which is Captain Small. He assures me he'll be able to sail all the way up to Farm Cove. So we'll have the Bounty under full rig, as will the other 10 ships on this First Fleet Re-enactment. It's back to you.
Thank you, Greg, but you are reneging on me. I'm sorry, you are reneging on me. But I'm very thrilled about the fact that we're going to be able to sail right the way up the harbour, because that is going to make the most spectacular shots of the entire lot. OK, let's have an update now from Alex on South Head, Alex Wildman. The view must be absolutely unbelievable.
It's fantastic here, Roger. We can see, as other people have predicted, that some of the ships coming out to meet the First Fleet and then the First Fleet and all the accompanying ones going in have come to a little bit of a standstill there, and we haven't seen any collisions from here. I've heard there have been, so hopefully they're not too bad. It sounds like everybody's getting very excited on the First Fleet ships, and I'm very emotional here thinking of you all there, seeing all those smiling faces, and what a fantastic voyage. You're finally here, and I'm sure you're going to have a fantastic day. I've got a couple of people here who are going to also have a fantastic day. They've been invited to the house that stands here on South Head. There's a party there, and what a fantastic place to have a party. You're pretty lucky. Yeah. I think it's somebody that they know who's come all the way from South Australia. Yeah. They know the people that live in the house. Who is he? He's a ranger that lives here, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a ranger of the nose.
Yeah, terrific. Well, you've got lots of people there, and they've got a fantastic view looking over the fence there at the great spectacular view there. And also somebody from St John's Ambulance Corps, who's a volunteer worker and goes back to school next week. You're looking forward to going back to school after seeing such a fantastic view today?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
And you've been very busy in Darling Harbour, haven't you?
Yeah, working 14, 15 hours a night.
Really?
A day.
And how many of you have been down there at Darling Harbour?
Well, there's been about 14 members regular attending, and we have 5 posts open. And
it's all
yesterday
volunteer
there was 9. Yeah, it's all volunteer. We don't get paid.
Right. So you're out here on South Head, what, most of the day?
I'll be here all day and night.
And what do you think of this spectacular view here? Would you like to be on one of the First Fleet coming in?
It'd be great, yeah.
It'd be great. Do you know some of the names of some of them? We've been following the pamphlet that's been around Sydney and following some of the television specials.
We haven't really been following the television specials or pamphlets on the First Fleet, but we've been really busy with the tall ships in Darling Harbour.
Right. Well, perhaps if you can see a replay of all this, you'll learn all the beautiful names of the ships and their history. We'll go back to Roger, but no, we're actually going to Michael. Actually, I wanted all our crowd over here to give him a big wave. Michael, we're giving you a big wave right now. How are you? Hello, Michael.
Hello, Alex. I'm terrific over here. I'll give you a bit of a wave over there.
I can't see you.
Oh, can't you?
No.
Well, we're a fair way away.
Where are you? What are you wearing? You're wearing blue, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm wearing my Bicentenary.
The yellow seemed to stand out, though, more than the blues.
Oh, well, I'll go and have a quick change then.
Okay.
But it's are you having a good time over there? Big crowd?
It's great. We've got this house. Can you see this house that's on South Head here?
No, I can't exactly.
There's somebody that actually lives in this prime position, and they're having a party. They've got Barbies in the background, tinsel on the trees.
Oh, it sounds marvellous.
Yeah, very elite crowd have been invited to that one.
Well, over here, as I've been saying, it's a photographer's paradise, and if you'd all like to look up the back there, and everybody like to hold their cameras up and have a big shot, because they're sailing past now, and we want the biggest click the world's ever seen. Okay, 1, 2, 3, click. Right, I give them a big wave because they can all see us. They can all see us as they're going past now, and they're giving a bit of a 3 cheers. Okay, well, I hope they heard us. I think down the bottom there, as we watch, the Bounty is being rapidly overtaken, as has been the custom of the Bounty over the voyage. And but it's my favourite ship, I've got to say that. And so the scene here is spectacular. Roger.
Thank you, Michael, very much indeed. I'm quite sure that eventually the Bounty will get herself into the proper position, because she has a very important position at the stern of the port hand line of ships coming in for this very important few moments at just after 11:30, when they all turn and head into Farm Cove. But right now, let's have another commercial. Is light, and as you can see, an incredible view of the harbour. And as a matter of fact, a few moments ago, we saw there just then one of the harbour ferries endeavouring to make its way through that enormous fleet from Sydney Harbour up to Manly, which was not an easy task, as you could see by the large numbers of ships around her. But now here we are with some of the passengers that we can see on board some of the ships and the ferries out here today, and what an incredible day it is too.
This is the Captain Phillip. This is the VIP launch for the Maritime Services Board and New South Wales Government. Now there we once again see an absolute mass of boats. In fact, you can hardly see through them. And look how skillfully the big ferries have got to make their way through that crowd of vessels. Of course, in the old days, the ferries had to give way to sail. Now the ferries on Sydney Harbour have automatic rights over the small sail craft. Absolutely fabulous.
Well, now, quite clearly, no matter who is supposed to give way to whom is a matter of just discussion at the moment, because it's very hard to say what's supposed to happen. It's very hard for anybody to move, because as Alex was saying a few moments ago, now we have the fleet that has been coming in actually with the First Fleet suddenly meeting the other craft which have been waiting and moving anxiously towards the oncoming First Fleet. So what happens now, I don't know, because even 200 years on after Captain Arthur Phillip arrived, we still don't seem to have anything quite like traffic lights out there in the middle of Sydney Harbour.
I predict the congestion will get worse as all the small craft and the bigger vessels block up together when they get further down the harbour. So it's going to be a very interesting scene. There'll be a lot of manoeuvring, but thank God it's a very quiet day. The waters are calm. The skippers of the various boats are going nice and slowly, so it's not making large waves or a chop. And it means that even if people bump one another or boats bump one another, they probably won't do terribly much damage. It's only when they speed up and do, say, over 10 knots. Now look at them up the mast there. What a vantage point that is. Sitting on one of the yard arms, a perfect view on a perfect day. And what a fantastic welcome it is.
Well, I'm not quite sure that I'd like to be doing that, but I admire those young ladies for being able to do it. And as you say, what an incredible shot. Look at the fire float out there too.
Well, perhaps if you and I had been at sea since May last year, we might have had the practice and be able to do it. But certainly the display there, the water display there, look at this. It's that would be creating a rainbow effect on the other side with the sun coming through that water.
No doubt there could be some viewers wondering why we have not yet seen the tall ships. Well, quite simply because they are in a special position, which is directly opposite Farm Cove, which, as I said earlier on, is going to be the backdrop for what Prince Charles and Princess Diana will be seeing from their position at the Opera House. But that's where all the major ships are going to be for the final stages of this great day.
Soren Larsen, and of course at this point of time we're awaiting the arrival of royalty, and of course that will be an ultimate salute to the fleet. The fact that we do have them here to welcome the fleet, and of course everyone else in Sydney is out on the harbour welcoming the fleet as well.
Well, there's an incredible shot. It's the sort of thing that you normally see when there's a forest of masts at anchor, but not on this occasion. On this occasion, they are out in the middle of the harbour, awaiting the arrival of this First Fleet as it moves truly majestically down the harbour. And there again we see, or did a moment ago, and now we see the beginning of the real official welcome. The arrival in a few moments' time of their Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales. We see them now just leaving, I think we will find. No, I've got that wrong, I beg your pardon. That is not who I said it was at all. I think that is the Governor of New South Wales. It's a bit hard to tell from this particular moment, but there they are now moving.
Yes, that is the Governor of New South Wales. They're on board a naval vessel, of course, and notice the precision there with the crew standing on the bow, on the stern to attention, boat hook in hand, really looking spectacular. But even more spectacular, you can't take your eyes off those sailing vessels. This is just superb. Little ants up on the hillside there, just thousands of people admiring that fleet, honouring Australia's history and heritage.
Well, in a few moments' time anyway, their Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales, will be arriving first of all in the motorcade, and they'll arrive at number 11 Wharf, Woolloomooloo. Of course, they've come from Government House. And in just a few moments' time, I hope to have the pleasure of asking Susie Ellerman to give us some indication of what Princess Diana is wearing today. It's the sort of thing which us men don't know much about, but therefore I leave it in the hands of a brave lady to explain exactly what she will be wearing. But meantime, before that happens, just look at that fleet of ships out there.
Well, the Prince and Princess of Wales, of course, have put the focus of world attention on Australia. But I think at this stage they're being outdone by this marvellous reenactment fleet. I'm sure Prince Charles would love to be watching this. Maybe he's got a secret little monitor somewhere. He's watching Channel 7 and the network to see what's happening out there. It really is.
I guess if he is not, there's a tremendous number of people right around Australia that are. And we just very much hope that you are enjoying what you are seeing, and that by seeing it you feel very much a part of what is happening here today.
There's a view from Bradley's Head, looking out towards the city and Garden Island, and it appears that most of the smaller craft have gone up now to see the fleet.
Yes, I think probably they're getting a bit anxious to see what they can as fast as they can, and they're going to get a dreadful shock when they're suddenly hit by all the ships coming in the opposite direction. I don't mean literally hit, I trust, but when they're suddenly confronted by that incredible armada. And now we have the Prime Minister, Mr. Hawke, and here we see Prince Charles and Lady Diana, and I think this is an ideal moment to ask Susie to tell us something about her clothes.
Well, Roger, I just caught a brief glimpse of her, and she's actually chosen green and white. It looks to me like it's a suit or certainly a dress following through. It's very, very hard to see at the moment, but she's always looking stunning with those big, wide-brimmed hats in the matching colours, of course. A beautiful choice of the green and white. The green, I think, certainly the colour of our bicentennial green, certainly there.
Well, that is a great honour that she should, and I'm sure that she has, consider us to that extent of the colours that she is wearing. She looks superb. We can't see her very clearly. You're doing a marvellous job there, Susie, from a difficult angle. But here we go now. Perhaps we'll get a better view now.
Yes, we will. I've noticed in her visit, Roger, that she's actually chosen, she always wears either one or two colours. Rather plain colours, but very, very striking. Yesterday, she actually wore a white silk dress that was navy and white, the striped scarf neckline on it. And today, she's teamed a very similar hat that she wore yesterday, only this time in that beautiful green and white.
Well, at this particular moment, their Royal Highnesses, Prince and Princess of Wales, have been joined, of course, by His Excellency the Governor-General and Lady Stephen. We saw him waving just a moment ago. They're leaving number 11 Wharf in the Royal Australian Navy Governor's barge en route to the Man of War steps, where we see right now the Prime Minister and the official party waiting to greet them when they arrive.
Looks like too, Roger, that Mrs. Hawke has actually chosen an Akubra hat to go with her white outfit. It does look like an Akubra hat that she's wearing.
Well, that's highly appropriate too, I think, and typically Australian as well. And here again, we're back to the ships for a moment or two as we see them dressing ship here.
Soren Larsen.
Looking very smart, the crew here today, with their red and white gear. In a few moments' time, look at the shot of the crowds of people. Look like currants on a cake, don't they? In a few moments' time, the Prince and Princess will be arriving at the Man of War steps. And of course, they will then be met by the official party, including His Excellency the Governor of New South Wales, Air Marshal Sir James Rowland and Lady Rowland, who a few moments ago I mistook. They're obviously on their way at that stage in their launch to that position at the Man of War steps to greet their Royal Highnesses and the Governor, the Australian Governor, at that particular vantage point.
Once again, the Soren Larsen there with the Commodore's pennant flying.
Obviously, the majority of the small ships are very much staying with the fleet, as we've mentioned before. And they're the first of the naval ships that we've had a chance to look at from a distance. And here we see the naval band in position there.
It is a perfect reception for both the royal party and the ships. The sun glistening off the water and everything going like clockwork.
And the Royal Australian Naval Band is in position for later on the playing of the Royal Salute right there in Farm Cove.
Here's the Captain Phillip coming in with some VIPs on board. Salute is being fired. This is certainly a big day for our armed services as well. The Royal Australian Navy, Royal Australian Air Force and Army, all involved, deeply involved.
In fact, we should in a few moments' time be seeing the Heritage Guard, which consists of Royal Australian Navy sailors dressed in naval uniforms worn at the time of the First Fleet, and also soldiers wearing the historic uniforms from the Sydney-based 2nd Cavalry Regiment, but all in good time.
Premier, Prime Minister,
according to
Chairman of New South Wales Bicentenary Council,
well, there we now see part of the Heritage Guard.
Looking quite spectacular too.
Well, sorry, go on, John, please.
They were great uniforms, weren't they?
Weren't they? I was just going to say, rather than try to spot them when...
The reception party ashore there with the Premier and the Prime Minister, Mrs. Hawke. Those red coats, don't they look brilliant?
I think they're the actually the coats of the Marines.
The Australian Army, of course, has a detachment of Marines in the rocks over the Australia Day period, greeting all the tourists and the locals. And what a great idea.
And what they are wearing at the moment, the Marines, is exactly the same uniform as worn by the Marines when they arrived with the First Fleet in 1788. And of course, they served in the colony until 1791, and that's the uniform that they must have worn, and it must have been incredibly hot too. The official guests, as John has just said, arriving right now. In a few moments' time, at 11 o'clock, if they're on time, and they usually are, their Royal Highnesses will be arriving with the Governor-General and Lady Stephen right here at this same position, and here they come right now to the man-of-war steps, and all is certainly in readiness for them at this moment.
That's a marvellous shot through the mast of a vessel there with the royal party approaching. The glistening hull of that little naval vessel.
That was taken from the Mirage, Christopher Scase's beautiful boat that we saw earlier on today, now in position off Farm Cove for some superb shots. We have 2 cameras on board there, which should give us some marvellous shots of this, the official part of today's ceremony here in Farm Cove.
We see at the bow on the jackstaff there the banner of the Governor-General flying. Of course, he is on board. That flag, which was introduced in 1936, only flies when the Governor-General is personally present.
And a proud moment indeed, I'm sure, for the naval staff on board this launch today. A great honour to be chosen for this momentous occasion, to be responsible for ensuring that this launch comes in correctly, and I'm quite sure, knowing the Navy, nothing will possibly go wrong. Governor, go on, sorry, John.
It's interesting to note there that the Governor-General standard's flying at that point rather than Prince Charles's flag.
Why is that?
Because the Governor-General takes precedence at this particular time.
Why, because he is representing the Queen?
He's representing Her Majesty the Queen, Sovereign of Australia.
Susie, any more comments you might like to say about what Diana is wearing, Princess Diana?
She's trimming her outfit in white, Roger. I noticed she's got beautiful white shoes, and that colour is just so cool and serene. She really does look a picture. And I've noticed that Charles is wearing grey, from what I can see too. I don't know the colour of his tie yet, but it's very hard to see at this stage.
Well, there we see the shot of the forecourt at the Opera House, the crowds waiting, the special guests waiting for this historic moment. And I'm sure all eyes are focused right now on that launch, which is getting very close to Man of War Steps. Superb shot there of the hoses on that fire tug.
Wherever you look, it's a spectacle. It's fantastic. More soldiers there.
And here we see the launch once again. The Heritage Guard, which we keep seeing glimpses of, I should say, consists of the New South Wales Corps, the 40th 2nd Somerset Regiment of Foot, the New South Wales Rifle Volunteers, the 18th Royal Irish Regiment, and also the contingent from the Sudan of 1885 were wearing white pith helmets, red jackets. But I'm sure I'll leave it at that because you'll be able to see the variety. Look at that shot there of the Heritage Guard, looking almost, and I say it with respect, like toy soldiers. And while we're waiting for this momentous moment for their Royal Highnesses to arrive at the Opera House, let's pause just momentarily for this commercial break. Welcome to Sydney and Sydney Harbour on this historic day. It's all happening here indeed at the moment. Look at the people down there waiting for this final historic moment when the First Fleet actually arrived right here at Farm Cove. And right now in the foreground we see the barge of their Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales, who together with His Excellency the Governor-General and Lady Stephen are about to arrive at the Man of War Steps alongside the Opera House. What an incredible view of all the people waiting on this foreshore for this great occasion. In a little while's time, of course, the First Fleet Re-enactment vessels will be sailing in there and will be anchoring virtually in the area where we now see the Royal Barge. That whole area will be covered by the 11 ships, the reenactment ships of the First Fleet. Here comes the barge right now, escorted, of course, by a police launch. Very soon now, the time due for the arrival is 11 o'clock. It's now 10:59:32. I think the Navy, as usual, are going to be bang on time.
This is reminiscent somewhat of the great naval 75th anniversary celebrations, which I think set a pattern for today's activities. They were like clockwork, and today, even the weather is perfect.
The green barge.
It seems almost strange, does it not, to suddenly see pictures of just a limited number of craft, because in this particular area, obviously the small craft are banned. Just the official ships involved in this section of the presentation are here. The Guard of Honour, waiting. The Heritage Guard, also waiting.
Looking really spick and span, too.
Well, there we can see the Princess of Wales once again. And Roger, I think this superb weather has certainly brought out the hats, not only in the official party, but certainly in the crowds that we see. And that looks great, because that's nice to greet the royal family, some stunning outfits, and lots of bright colours that we're seeing. I still can't help saying that the best vantage point to see this is certainly in your own living room and watching it on the 7 network. I know it'd be great to have the atmosphere there, but we really can't repeat it here, can we? It's just excellent.
Well, amongst other things, by being here, we can't get sunburnt, that's for sure. And the beautiful hat that Princess Diana is wearing will ensure that she won't get sunburnt either. She looks magnificent.
Well, she has the most magnificent peaches and cream complexion that you've ever seen, and we can now see her dress. It, in fact, is a dress trimmed superbly in white, with the white trim on her matching hat, and we've decided to call that green Bicentennial green. It's almost got a blue tinge to it, but it's green, and she's trimmed her entire outfit in white.
Well, now we see the guests meeting the official party, of course. Our Prime Minister, Mr. Hawke, and Mrs. Hawke. Standing on the right-hand side of your screen is the Governor of New South Wales, Air Marshal Sir James Rowland and Lady Rowland, and escorted by the official group, including the Prime Minister and the Premier of New South Wales, Mrs. Unsworth. They will be marching past, or walking past, I should say, the Heritage Guard of Honour, which, as I've told you a few moments ago, are dressed in the uniforms of the Navy and the Army of the period of the First Fleet arrival. And here we see right now the first of the aircraft arriving, the first of the aircraft for the flypast. As I mentioned a moment ago, the official party is now walking towards the dais. Mr. and Mrs. Unsworth. Then we see the Governor-General, Sir Ninian Stephen and Lady Stephen. Now we can clearly see that what we couldn't see a little while ago, that Prince Charles is wearing a yellow tie. And also Lady Rowland is extremely smartly dressed. Would you care to describe that dress to us, Susie?
Yes, certainly. Well, I was going to say, first of all, that the Princess of Wales is now wearing slightly shorter skirts, I've noticed, and she's still keeping with a fairly low heel. But certainly the red and white looks stunning behind, and spots seem to be the order of the day for her.
Of course, is Lady Rowland.
Even spots on her hat, Roger.
Yes, indeed. Now we see them arriving at the official dais, and the smart colours and the bright colours that we see here today, as you said earlier, Susie, certainly there's an incredible array of different coloured hats out there.
Prince Charles looking very smart in his double-breasted suit, beautifully tailored, as we said, that lovely yellow tie with the matching kerchief, and interestingly enough, a blue shirt that he's teamed with it.
Now we wait for the royal salute.
Breaking out the flags. This is the Governor. There we see the Prince's standard plane, and of course the Governor's flag and the Governor-General's flag, representing the presence of those three parties.
And in just a few moments, Mr. Stephen Hall, the director of the Festival of Sydney, will announce the playing of Advance Australia Fair.
Sounding great, and I heard enthusiastic cheering from the crowds there too. They're all decked out in their multicoloured dresses. Everyone's looking resplendent, actually, and what a joyous occasion it celebrates.
Let's have a big hand for the guard as they march off.
think we could understand why she is regarded as one of the most beautiful women in the world. Not only in the way she looks, but in the way she dresses.
Most definitely, the way she carries herself, she just looks absolutely stunning. Roger, I often think how many visitors have actually come to Australia for this bicentennial event. It's amazing how many people came up to me saying they're from all over the world, particularly England.
The magnificent voice of leading soprano Joan Carden, together with the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, 2nd Military District Band, with Advance Australia Fair.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman of the New South Wales Bicentennial Council, Mr. Joe Leeson.
Your Excellencies, Your Royal Highnesses, Premier, Prime Minister, Presidents of Australian states, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the New South Wales Bicentennial Council, I welcome you to this celebration of our National Day. I welcome
We shall
you
return to our telecast following this commercial break.
I welcome all those gathered on the board shore.
And right now, let's return, shall we, to Maurice Parker aboard Soren Larsen, the flagship, to see what sort of crowds, I should say, he can see at this moment from his position. Where exactly that is, I'm not quite sure, but let's find out.
Thank you very much for that, Roger. There's crowds absolutely everywhere. We have been swamped all the way in as we came from the harbour. There are crowds lining every balcony in Sydney along the shoreline there. It's absolutely incredible. I have with me the captain. I'm about to interview his kneecaps by the looks of things. Oh, sorry, captain. How's it all going?
Pretty well. Yeah, it's fantastic.
What about...
Can't express it. Words fail me. No, it's really tremendous. One of the greatest days of my life.
You said to me before that there was a lump in your throat as you came through the heads and perhaps a tear in the eye.
Very much so. No, it's very emotional. I mean, the fact that all these people come out and welcome the fleet is really quite fantastic.
You sound very calm, but are there a lot of hassles and problems right now trying to get to the Opera House?
There is. You know, the last thing we want to do is collide with somebody, but somehow we just seem to keep going. The tug ahead of us with all the water hoses is doing a great job keeping things clear. In fact, it gave us a good shower as well, which is, they say it never rains in Sydney, so I've been rained on by the harbour. But I don't mind, it's worth it, it's great.
Well, that's it at the moment here on the Soren Larsen, but there are crowds everywhere, and to be honest with you, they're very well behaved, letting the fleet come in, and they're all waving to us and tooting to us. It's just incredible out here, and we're just going past one of the tall ships right now. That's the Gorschvok, and as you can see just over there, with all the trainees on board, and the Soren Larsen is now giving them 3 cheers. Thank you for that. So now I know what you do here.
I'm a messenger. I'm a messenger forward from bow to stern. But otherwise, apart from that, I'm beeping the horn.
Beeping the horn. Good fun?
Well, it's just such an amazing feeling to be here now. All these boats are just fantastic.
You've left us all speechless. Can you give us a nice big beep for Roger back in the studio, who's missing out on all this excitement?
Sure can.
Here we go. Well, for you, Roger.
Well, thank you, Tish, very much indeed for that, indeed. What a girl, as you say there, Morris. And I was going to ask you, can you still hear me, Morris?
Roger?
Yes, I was going to ask you, actually, where you think the thickest, the largest crowds are on the foreshores. Can you pick it, or is it just too many everywhere?
There's a lot everywhere. I'm just having a look now myself. It's just that every vantage point, Roger, is chock-a-block with people, 3 or 4 rows deep. It's quite amazing, really. And as I said, every balcony we go past, there are people hanging out with their umbrellas and obviously having a champagne or two. It's really amazing. We actually went past the Captain Cook cruise ship, and it was on a very big lean, extremely big lean. Hope they're all right over there. But that's really about it, Roger.
Well, thanks once again, Morris. It sounds quite fantastic, and I wish I was out there, and I'd like to use that hooter on my car. It might make a bit of a difference when I'm driving down the main streets with a lot of other traffic around. But thank you again, Trish, for playing it for me. Now we're going over, I think, to once again back to the Opera House to see exactly what is happening. Yes, indeed.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Beautiful and a solemn moment indeed there. The singing of the bicentennial hymn presented by the Philharmonic Choir, played by the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, the 2nd Military District Band, and of course led magnificently by Joan Cardin. And we shall come back once again to this great and important day right after this.
The Roundhouse, sold by auctioneer Bruce Messer. Residential property in Belair, sold by Bruce Messer. A property in Blackwood, sold by Bruce Messer. The Abbey, sold by Bruce Messer. Discover how Adelaide's top auctioneer can generate the top price for your property. Bruce Messer, now working through Weeks and Macklin, the sign of success. Call Weeks and Macklin.
And once again, it's our great pleasure to welcome you back to Sydney Harbour on this great and important day. The weather continues to be fine, the fleet is enormous, and everything is apple pie order, shall we say, at this particular stage of proceedings. But right now, we'd like to cross over once again to Morris Parker on the Soren Larsen for a rather important ceremony. So back to you, Morris.
Thank you very much, Roger, as the cannons are being fired. Sam, you've got something rather unique here. Can you explain it to me, please?
Yes, today we're going to put a wreath into the water to a remembrance of the Aboriginals who died in Australia in the past through white man's presence here. And the First Fleet has always, from Portsmouth, felt very strongly about the Aboriginal and their problems in Australia. And now today we have this wreath. We're going to put it in the water in front of Lady Macquarie's chair, where the Aboriginals are actually camped as a protest. And just from the First Fleet, we'd like to recognise that we do understand their problems. We're trying to do something here as for the future of Australia for the next 200 years, and it really means something to us to be able to do this for them today. And I just hope that the next 200 years are a whole lot better than the last, because Australia's really got to get together on this one, and we've all got to pull the weights as a nation, okay? Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Sam. Jonathan, anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, the request came from the Aboriginal people's representatives, Benny Zabel and Juno Gems, and they've been talking to Gary Foley, and they asked us, would we make up a wreath with Aboriginal colours, like the flag, black, red and yellow, and cast it into the water as we pass Mrs Macquarie's chair where the Aboriginal presence is. And we're going to do that in a few minutes, and it's our offering to the Aboriginal people.
Thanks very much for that, Roger. We'll come back when the wreath is thrown into the water at Lady Macquarie's chair. Back to you, Roger.
Thank you, Morris. Well, now we're going to be crossing back to the Opera House and to the speech of our Prime Minister, Mr. Hawke.
All that has been built here and achieved here over the past 200 years. And it is not only the common bond of institutions, standards, language and culture. Indeed, in today's Australia, our very diversity is an ever-growing source of our richness, vitality and the strength of our community. It is true that all these things that I've mentioned go to shape the Australian character and to define the Australian identity. Yet, beyond them, there remains one vital factor in the answer to the question, who is an Australian? And that factor is a commitment to Australia and to its future. It is that common commitment which binds the Australian born of the 7th or 8th generation and all those of their fellow Australians born in any of the 130 countries from which our people are drawn. In Australia, there is no hierarchy of descent. There must be no privilege of origin. The commitment is all. The commitment to Australia is the one thing needful to be a true Australian. And today, my fellow Australians, at this historic place and at this historic hour, let us all renew that commitment. our commitment to Australia and to Australia's cause, the cause of freedom, fairness, justice and peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my wife and I are delighted to be able to return to Australia at this very special time to celebrate with you your nation's bicentennial. It is a historic and splendid occasion for all of us, not only here in Australia, but all over the world, and not least in the United Kingdom. The modern nation of Australia began here 200 years ago today. They were harsh beginnings, and the people who were sent here against their will had little cause to rejoice. And all that was just yesterday. As history goes, 200 years is barely a heartbeat. Yet look around you and see what has happened in that time. A whole new free people. The people of a whole new free country, Australia. If it takes regular visitors from an old country to help you decide whether you should be celebrating or not, my wife and I will be glad to be of assistance. We are both very happy to have been invited to the party. When Captain Cook discovered this part of the great Southland and claimed it for the British Crown, he was sailing in quest of knowledge. And whatever is said about the founding of the British Empire, the astonishing courage and resolve of many people like Captain Cook, who dramatically advanced the sum of human knowledge in their quest for discovery and trade, should not be ignored amidst the less worthy aspects of the story. But as still happens today, when knowledge is invariably examined for its less exalted applications, King George III's ministers fairly soon saw the practical possibilities of a place where inconvenient people could be transported and forgotten. There is no point now in trying to gloss over the circumstances in which the country of which you are rightly proud began. Indeed, to face those facts is a necessary part of realizing just how proud you should be. For the sad truth is that in those early days of the colony, nobody was free. The men who guarded the convicts were in prison along with them. They were all a long way from home, and they all, no doubt, thought that Australia was the worst place in the world. But the best part about the story is that they made their prison into a new home, where freedom became not just the dream of those in shackles, but a reality for everybody. It didn't happen by accident. It took the intelligence and courage of brave men and women. Even within the astonishingly brief span which covers the whole history of modern Australia, the process of making liberty an institution took time. For the original people of this land, it must all have seemed very different. And if they should say that their predicament has not yet ended, it would be hard to know how to answer, beyond suggesting that a country free enough to examine its own conscience is a land worth living in, a nation to be envied. Anyway, most people
who live here now seem to think Australia is the best place in the world, and the rest of the world finds it difficult to argue. By now, almost every country on earth is the old country to some family in Australia. Coming from your first old country and celebrating the 22nd anniversary to the month of my first transportation to Australia, let me say on behalf of all the lands and peoples who have contributed to your heritage that you have the best of us. Australia is its own creation, but in a very real sense, it belongs to the world. Australia is an international nation. People from anywhere feel at home here in Australia. It's that sort of place. In 2 world wars, Australians fought wholeheartedly against intolerance and tyranny. They didn't just fight for the old empire, which has now receded into history. They fought for freedom, which lasts if it is looked after and nurtured. One of Australia's oldest ties with the oldest of its old countries is the rule of law. They were harsh judges who sent the first Australians out here, but they were wisely framed laws that turned the convicts into free men and women. And free men and women helped make a democracy which has become a model for the world. They didn't do it just by being good-natured and easygoing, however famous they were, and you are for those qualities. They did it by carefully writing down the laws of a reasonable and humane society. The spirit of liberty that they felt within themselves, they made legible to others. The true celebration of this nation is in its constitution, in those dry-sounding but hard fought-for rules and regulations. Every family in this remarkable country has its rights protected and cherished. As it happened so long ago, many of you may not realize that part of my own education took place here in Australia. Quite frankly, it was by far the best part, and something which I shall always cherish. It gave me an insight into the character of this country and the individuals who have shaped it by the force of their personalities and by their infectious good humor. While I was here, I had the pommy bits bashed off me, like chips off an old block, and the results are only too obvious. I keep coming back for more, and it is always a special pleasure. But my wife and I are particularly glad to be here this year, on this great day, to help you, as if the Aussies needed help in anything, to celebrate your good fortune and to wish you well for a future that holds out such great promise.
His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales speaking there, looking extremely fit and tan, don't you think, Susie?
I think a little bit more than tan, Roger. I think he's caught a little bit of Aussie sun, and in fact the Prince is a little sunburnt. Not like the Princess of Wales, of course, sensibly wearing a hat, and also the dark sunglasses, which we don't see very often on the Princess. But I certainly feel that coming from an English winter, she probably didn't realise how bright it was going to be, and the day is certainly very glary, so it was nice to see her matching in her gorgeous outfit as always.
Yes, indeed, and I think having listened to what Prince Charles has had to say, he may regret having to go back to the cold nest in a few days' time.
Most definitely.
Anyway, we'll go away and we will come back in just a few moments after this commercial break. Once again, we welcome you back, Australia, to this, our great birthday party, our 200th. And in just a moment, we're going to be crossing over to the forecourt of the Opera House for the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, which, together with the 2nd Military District Band, accompanied by the Philharmonic Choir, are presenting a medley of national and patriotic songs. And as we listen, let's just look at some of the magnificent sights on this harbour today. continue to hear the Sydney Symphony Orchestra and the 2nd Military District Band with a medley of national and patriotic songs. Here comes the official flypast. Somewhere of approximately 147 aircraft from the Navy, the Army and the Air Force. In the lead we have the Navy with Squirrel helicopters, Sea King helicopters, Wessex helicopters and 2 Bell 206 helicopters. And they look indeed magnificent as they head towards the official flypast position over the Opera House.
Keeping a beautiful formation as well there. Glistening there on the screens, the sun coming through, the blades spinning around. Excellent.
That was a sudden movement of the camera. Meantime, back with the aircraft or the helicopters. The order of flight is the naval helicopters first of all, followed by the helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft of the Army. I think at the present time, if you can tell me, correct me, John, I think it appears to be the naval contingent at the moment.
It certainly does. And they're keeping that tight formation once again. They just went over the Bounty a minute ago, making a spectacular contrast. There we are going over parts of Garden Island, or Garden Island in the backdrop, Woolloomooloo, the Royal Botanic Gardens.
Magnificent shots there of them.
Over the canopy at the Opera House.
Clearly the sounds of the orchestra are now being drowned out by the first of this contingent of 147 aircraft. This official flypast under the presence of Prince Charles, Princess Diana, and the other important guests there at the Opera House forecourt today. Heading now across the Sydney Harbour Bridge towards the northern suburbs. And if you're at home, well, maybe if you live on the north side of Sydney now, could just be the moment to pop outside and look up, because I'm sure that you will see them. And if you don't see them, you'll certainly hear them.
I think you'd want to block your ears as they go over. It must be quite a noise going straight over your heads.
Well, there goes the Navy. And to the singing of Rule Britannia in just a moment, we should see the Army. Extremely difficult unless you are an expert to pick exactly who is what at the moment. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Are you doing any better, John?
No, I'm not really. They look like a lot of little buzzing bees up there. At the distance, it's very hard to tell which is which. But certainly the effect is spectacular.
And not wishing to downgrade any of the aircraft that we're seeing, but at the very end of the flypast, we should see the F-111 strike aircraft, the Mirage fighters, and then I guess our hope for the future, 20 FA-18 Hornets, which of course are our newest.
Yes, and here comes the planes now, coming through. Once again, keeping a beautiful formation and making really quite a sight.
I wonder whether I could venture a guess and say I think they were caribous.
Yes, they were.
Were they not?
They were caribou. The ocean in the background, if I'm right there, yes, and look at those headlands there into Sydney Harbour. Nielsen Park down below.
Magnificent shots there taken from the airships above the aircraft, which are flying at somewhere between 700 and 1,500 feet. Their actual path, Point Piper, Garden Island, the Opera House, Millers Point, and Ballarat Point. Surely adding the icing on the cake here today, the ships below, the aircraft above, and everything happening here on Sydney Harbour.
Beautiful contrast between the blue sky the buildings down below, and then, of course, the ocean as well. I think we can see Botany Bay there in the distance.
Yes, we can indeed, and we've just been told that the jets are just about to cross the coastline, so stand by for some ear-splitting noise in just a moment.
It's a credit to the forces to put on a display like this for all of us to see. In fact, for the world to see as well.
Just superb. It would be hard to imagine what this would have been like if there had been cloudy conditions or wet weather. But as we said earlier, we have been extremely fortunate, like this country always seems to have been, to have had perfect conditions today for this great event.
Yes, you couldn't better this. Now we're into the larger helicopters here. Once again, the Opera House. And look at the spouts of water from the craft in the harbour, and literally thousands of small craft.
And surely here come the jets now.
Slipstreams behind them. Once again, a tight formation.
Very tight formation indeed down there on the water today as well.
Yes, it's hard to tell which is tighter. I think it might be on the water there. Here they come. I think there's 9 aircraft in that group that we're seeing. Yes, there is.
They could therefore be the Orion maritime patrol aircraft.
The Orion's done great service in the past, looking after surveillance matters with rescues and other things that they've had to undertake.
Magnificent formation they're flying in this morning.
It certainly is. Look at those propellers. The flight past never seems to end. There's so many.
Well, there's, according to the official information, in excess of 147 aircraft flying across Sydney from east to west this morning. There they go, and we just wait now. I'm sure the tens of thousands of people down there are waiting, craning their necks to see what will happen next.
Yes. In fact, they look to be over Darling Harbour, just past Darling Harbour now, where all the tall ships were moored.
And still they come.
You see right out there to the Blue Mountains and right down the coast of New South Wales.
Now we see indeed the jet aircraft coming towards us. They should consist of 15 F-111 strike aircraft. There they are right now, the F-111s, streaking across the sky. They've come in from Dover Heights.
That's a very effective pattern, particularly with their wingspan, the shape that it is.
Beautiful flying.
Absolutely superb.
Something of the noise that we can hear must be absolutely deafening to the people below them.
It's a compliment too, of course, to the Royal Australian Air Force, putting on such a marvellous display.
F-111s will be followed in a few moments by the Mirage fighters.
The Governor of New South Wales must be particularly proud with his Air Force background.
Ladies and gentlemen, Waltzing Matilda.
Appropriate piece of music indeed. we have it, the daylight fireworks, the magnificent voice of Joan Cardin, the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, the 2nd Military District Band, the Philharmonic Choir, all combining with our greatest song, surely, Waltzing Matilda. Hope that you feel as proud and honored. And welcome back to the Sydney of City, or City of Sydney, I should say. I'm getting a bit tied up here this morning. I was just going to say on surely her greatest and most historic day. In just a few moments' time, the royal party will be departing from, and here they go even as I say it, departing from the Opera House on their way back to Admiralty House. And as they do so, the royal salute from the Royal Australian Naval Band in the forecourt of the Opera House. And in just a moment's time, the royal party will head across the harbour to Admiralty House to change before attending a luncheon at the Overseas Passenger Terminal at Circular Quay at 1:30 this afternoon. But 1,500 special guests will be there, and you might be interested to hear what the menu is. The menu is soup, Tasmanian trout, and sweets, which I suppose doesn't sound particularly exciting at first thoughts, but then as my wife pointed out to me this morning, she said it's entirely a question of what sort of soup it's going to be. So I think perhaps I will leave it at that. Let's go back now, if we may, to some more general shots, can we, of the harbour at this great moment of time. Here we are, the tiny white marks of the countless thousands of small craft and the white sails standing out there of the Opera House. Surely a magnificent backdrop to what is happening here today.
I must say the ships are now coming into moor in Farm Cove, and once again, a superb picture. We mentioned earlier in the programme about the signals that the ships used to send, and signals that were sent from South Head up to Observatory Hill to tell the early colonists what was happening, what ship was off the coast. We've just had a message delivered to us that Dewsbury's, the chartered accountant firm, an Australian-owned firm, has decided in their patriotic spirit to put in $20,000 to restore those beautiful masts at Observatory Hill. So it's a great credit to them, and I guess in this patriotic fervour, it's good to see the spirit of Australia through Dewsbury's doing such a good task.
Indeed, John, that's very fine indeed. And clearly now, there we have the 11 ships of this first reenactment fleet moving into position in Farm Cove at the end of their historic voyage, their 248-day voyage from England. They left Portsmouth on the 13th of May, 1987. They went from there to Tenerife in the Canary Islands, and then to Rio de Janeiro, from there to Cape Town, and from there to Mauritius, Mauritius to Fremantle, and from Fremantle to Botany Bay, and of course today from Botany Bay right here to Sydney Harbour, to the centre of it all. And this is indeed their moment of glory, and they are certainly entitled to it, and our congratulations to each and every one of them who have been involved in this historic voyage of 8 months and 1 week from England to Australia, a reenactment of exactly what Captain Arthur Phillip did 200 years ago for his arrival here today.
I think the fleet had as many problems as Phillip had, but in a different way, and that they've overcome all these problems, financial, the lack of initial support, all those things are now in the past. The ships are resplendent there in Farm Cove.
Naval Band doing its stuff there in no uncertain way as the royal couple prepare to depart for Admiralty House from the forecourt, man-of-war steps of the Opera House. And we'll come back with a continuation of proceedings in just a moment. I'm enjoying bringing it to you. My pleasure now to talk once again to Dr. Alan Frost, our historian, to ask him the question which is, I think, very important at this moment of time. What was the legacy that Captain Arthur Phillip has left Australia?
Well, there's a great deal in our society that we should be proud of. It's not been perfect in the past 200 years, but Phillip gave us something that we really should cherish. He gave us a society in which members can progress without rigid class distinctions. He gave convicts the opportunity of redeeming themselves and becoming useful members of society. He taught people who weren't accustomed to work for the common good.
And also, what do you think of the next 200 years, and what does it hold in store for us?
Well, the nation certainly has to settle the Aboriginal question. But once that's done, then I would hope that we'd proceed very much as we are now, tolerating diversity and still keeping a coherence to our society.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Frost. We do appreciate your being with us today. And
Great pleasure.
Thank you, and I think also the sentiments that you've echoed just now will be uppermost in all our minds, and surely that is what we are celebrating today, the past which is leading into, we trust, a new and more fortuitous future for us all.
Let us hope so.
Thank you very much indeed. So meantime, let's have a look now, shall we, at exactly what is still happening out there, because this day is indeed far from over. The parade of ships continues on our harbour. It is impossible at the moment, I think, to say exactly what ship that is, where she is, or what direction she is heading in, but she's certainly very much a part of what is occurring here today.
She's certainly getting along at a nice pace, too. Clear waters. Obviously, all the spectator craft are up around the First Fleet Re-enactment ships.
Well, that appears to be somewhere around Middlehead, I think, from where I'm looking at the moment.
Yes, it is. In fact, she's going down the harbour, probably towards the fleet.
How interesting, John, that there are so few craft around there. The entire fleet has been magnetised and drawn towards what is happening at Farm Cove and has been happening for the last hour and a half.
Well, I would say around the Farm Cove area there, you couldn't move your boat now, or you'd be jam-packed. Yes, there it is.
Well,
there's Bradley's Head.
While we're looking at Bradley's Head, let's also go and see exactly what has happened to Soren Larsen with Morris Parker on board. Morris, tell us about it.
Get on air. Margaret, quick!
Doesn't look a bit like Morris Parker to me, but never mind. It seems that for some reason we haven't got Morris Parker, but never mind, probably with all the mayhem that must be going on around those ships at the moment there at Farm Cove. He's having great difficulty in receiving us at the moment, but we'll probably catch him up in just a few moments' time. And look at the people there. It would be marvellous to see just how many people we do have around the foreshores of Sydney. But now I'm told that we can get to Morris Parker. So, Morris Parker on Soren Larsen, where were you?
Just standing here, Roger, basically. Just getting everything organised. As you can see, the foreshores are packed to the hilt. But before we do anything, we mentioned that reef before, and we like to let the crew do what they have to do with it for the Aboriginals.
This is a reef to commemorate the loss of the Aboriginal life in the past 200 years, and we commit this reef to the water as a sailing tradition, and we live in memory of those people who died in the first 200 years of Australia's history, and may there be no more death like that, okay?
Okay, I'll leave it to you guys.
Right.
Okay, well, that's that all done. All I can say is we've had a fantastic day here out in the Soren Larsen. The emotions when we all came in, we anchored, it was just incredible. Jonathan, you're with me once again. This is it, mate.
Well, I think this would have to be Australia's biggest day ever. It's like the end of World War II. The crowds that have come forward in unity to celebrate the nation of Australia must have been equivalent to the end of World War II. We've got a great future ahead of us if we see this as the start of a new beginning for Aboriginal Australians, for all Australians. So we can do anything, Australia, and I reckon that's what this Bicentenary is all about. Let's go for it.
And of course, as you know, you can go to Darling Harbour and have a look at the First Fleet Re-enactment ships, can't you?
You can sail on the First Fleet. Come sail with us. Have a bit of fun on a square rigger. And happy birthday, Australia. Thanks for being with us.
Happy birthday, Australia. Thanks for all your time. I hope you enjoyed being on the Soren Larsen as we came into Sydney Harbour. Back to you, Roger.
Thank you very much indeed, Morris, for a job very well done. And thank you too, Jonathan. You're a great salesman. You must be to pull off this incredible coup of the reenactment of an entire voyage across the world. We'll come back in just a moment.
Part of this bus for 2 days.
I don't like leaving the gold in the bus all night.
Hey, Terry, will you just leave it to me? I'm telling you, everything will be all right.
All right. They're really like a needle in a haystack.
Except they're looking for the wrong needle. Oh, just think. Tomorrow we'll be in Arrowhead making our delivery.
And next week, the Riviera. Now, that's not bad for a bus driver's wife. What do you think? Look like the average day's bus charter, tacky and messy?
Ma'am, I think this is your stuff.
Oh. Thank you, sir. Have a nice day now.
One more question, Captain Ballard. One source estimates that the plane was carrying over 10 million in gold. Is that true?
As yet, we have not had an exact report on how much gold the plane was carrying.
One more question about the bus.
We're doing the best we can under the circumstances. Now, if you'll just excuse...
Something that size just can't vanish, Captain. Now, have you checked with the Navy depots to see if one of their buses is missing?
Yes, we've done that. They're all present and accounted for. Now, is that it, miss, or is it Bez? I have a job to do.
Is your department cooperating with the FBI on this?
Oh, you bet. Yeah. Yeah, that it?
Just one more question.
Excuse me, Captain. Need to talk to you.
All right, I'm sorry, but that'll have to be it. We're doing everything in our power, and arrest can be expected soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain.
What do you want?
Nothing.
Well, thanks for getting me off the hook.
Looked like you squirmed enough.
You're all hard.
Won't hurt.
Thanks. Oh, if we don't find that bus fast, I'm gonna have my head removed. Like one of those headaches you get from eating ice cream too fast. Only this one won't go away.
We're gonna find them. All the border crossings are covered. The Coast Guard's watching for boats, and we're covering the sky.
Hey, my wife wants to meet a cousin of hers from Cleveland.
Yeah? She pretty?
Great personality.
How's her figure?
As smart as a whip.
Yeah, I got you. Great personality. Plays the piano, makes her own clothes. I'll pass. Besides, now that Lisa and I are split, she's a lot more fun to date. We get along real well.
I'll try to explain that to my wife.
How's she?
Oh, as usual. She wants a 7-day-a-week husband. I got an 8-day-a-week job.
The kids?
I hardly see them since I took over the bureau. I sleep when I leave home. Sleep when I get back. I gotta start calling me Uncle Daddy.
That's tough.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah. Damn it. They really got a head start on us. They could be anywhere by now.
No, this headache says they're still somewhere in the area. Sometimes the hardest thing to find is right in front of your face.
Henry, confirming 1022 on the Marina search. Heading east toward Inglewood, Culver City. 954 Henry. Briefing for early mornings in 5 minutes. Briefing in 5 minutes.
All right, let's settle down. We've got a top priority item tonight, that gold heist. There's a county-wide search looking for that Navy bus. You have the composites of the suspects involved. They are armed and must be considered extremely dangerous.
We're doing everything in our power. An arrest can be expected soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. That was Captain Montgomery Ballard from the...
You tell him, Ballard, an arrest is expected very soon. Well, did you ever hear such a crock? Those dumb cops couldn't find a horn in a herd of buffaloes. But I love it. I love it.
Yeah, well, I don't.
You know what?
I don't like leaving the gold overnight, and I don't like going up with you on the bus tomorrow.
Hey, listen to me, babe. I've invested over a year on this whole operation. The people, the place, the payouts, all of it, and everything has gone just perfect.
I still think we should have gone...
Should have
all the
what?
way-
Why don't you relax? It's all over but the spending. Tomorrow we change our big gold bars into little green bills. Hey, look, if you're so uptight, why don't you stay here and I'll pick you up after I make the delivery.
No way.
Don't you trust me?
Look, you were married to another woman when I met you. Did she trust you?
Leave it off.
I want to watch the late movie.
I don't. Leave it off.
Gee.
Will you shut off your light?
Is this the way you treated your first wife?
No. Used to beat the hell out of her.
Doug. Hey, Doug.
What happened? We were talking and you just disappeared.
You fell asleep.
I did?
Mm-hmm.
See, you slipped into something a little more comfortable. Is it new? You haven't seen it before.
Oh, you've seen it before. You've just never seen it before.
Can't believe I'd forget something like that.
You better get going, Doug. It's getting very late.
I'll help you with the dishes.
I'll do them in the morning.
I'd like to help.
You never did the dishes when we were married.
I didn't.
No.
Well, you see, I've changed for the better. And that new detergent you got
Uh-huh.
does wonders for my hands.
Oh, get out of here.
Lisa, driving home at this time of the night could be dangerous, you know?
But flying around in those glorified grasshoppers, that is not dangerous.
Absolutely not. No drunks up there. They're all on the street.
Here is your coat, and here is the door. Now go home, get some sleep so you can go out and chase all those bad guys.
Bad guys can wait.
But you can't.
Lisa, I'll sleep on the couch. Do I have some old pajamas around here somewhere?
And I imagine that Field Marshal Ballard knows exactly where to get hold of you. Oh, well, nothing has changed. Out.
Out? Lisa Trumbull, do you realize if I get in an accident on the way home tonight, that you will feel guilty for the rest of your life? Out. Good night, darling.
Good night.
I can't go home.
What?
I don't have my shoes. Remember, do not attempt to apprehend without backup. Request a field sergeant and notify the station. All right, let's do it.
Wonder where that bus is right now.
Don't know, but I'd sure like to spot it. Maybe we'll get lucky.
Yeah, sure. Maybe.
Getting their act together here for the 3:30. Lindy Lou, very frisky for a 5-year-old. And they're off. Hillmark well away, a length and a half. It's Cherry Red, Lindy Lou lying third, and Harry's Boy pulling out all the stops. At the 800, Hillmark is...
Let your sense of smell lead your sense of taste to the world's finest coffee blend. Nescafe Blend 43.
Now, who seems to be winning? Harry's Boy. Well done, Harry's Boy.
Nescafe Blend 43. Satisfying in every sense.
G'day, Eric.
Hey, George. Garden's looking good.
Yeah.
You gotta see my place. My human hasn't got a clue.
Don't worry. Mine was hopeless too. Killed everything she touched. Until I put her onto this. The Encyclopedia of Australian Gardening.
Yeah, mine was so bad even the worms moved out.
Get him to start reading that. Right from issue 1, things started improving round here. It showed her what to plant, where and when.
Useful.
It taught her landscaping.
I can see that.
And all about soils, veggie gardens, diseases.
She learned all that from this.
She learnt something new every week. Look out, Eric! The dog's back!
Buy issue 1 of the Encyclopedia of Australian Gardening and get a 32-page 12-month garden planner. Then watch it grow into a complete gardening guide.
Bye, George.
We need a new idea in bedroom furniture. Something with more drawer space.
Yeah, that's built in and designed to fit the room.
With everything coordinated.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Sounds ideal,
Yeah.
but nobody makes it.
Use It Space Fitter bedroom furniture. An exciting new idea. Built-in furniture designed to suit your bedroom and budget. Professionally installed. You've got bedroom space. Use it.
Oh, I've been up to Cunningham's warehouse. Pull up exercise machines. Rush these at $4.99. Vicini AM/FM clock radios slashed to $24.99. TIAC 3-hour VHS videotapes with lifetime guarantee now only $6.99. GAF AM clock radios, great gift at $18.99. TDJ audio tapes, pack of 10, C60s $6.99. Pack of 10 C90s $8.99. Buy a bargain at Cunningham's warehouse sales, Highbury, Black Forest, Prospect, Rundle Mall.
Larry, my bus. Larry, hey, what happened to my bus? Number 8481. I parked it right over there.
Needed a clean out. I had the guy drive it over to...
Drive it? What are you talking about, drive it? To where?
Number 8481 is parked right over there by the fence.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Larry. I don't know what's wrong with me. My nerves lately, I didn't sleep last night. Had an asthma attack.
Well, you should have reported in sick if you had an asthma attack.
No, I'll be all right once I get rolling. That mountain charter at the Elks Club. Mountain air will make me feel terrific.
Hey, what about that?
Old Boomerang just keeps coming back for more because Chum gives him firm and meaty value that's so chumpy you can carve it. Well, it's better to give than retrieve. Oh, Chum, always so chumpy you can carve it.
I'm so weak!
I'm so weak, got no control. I'm so weak, I can't say no. I'm so weak, got no control. I'm so weak, I can't say no. You can't say no. You can't say no.
Now's the time to choose genuine Cresta verticals in an unbeatable range of colours.
Because we're throwing away the price list and blitz the rest with a genuine 40% off.
You can Cresta the patio doors from just $107.
That's 40% off.
You can Cresta this window from only $72.
A genuine 40% off.
So choose Cresta verticals and say...
A genuine 40% off Cresta's normal selling prices.
Phone today.
The Janome Model 352 is normally $599. Let's see how far we can drop this price in just 25 seconds. Meanwhile, I'll explain the features, like the easy pattern selection dial, the range of practical and creative stitches. But best of all, the Janome Model 352 is very easy to use. There, $299, a drop of $300.
Available at John Martin's, all stores.
Channel 7 is proud to present an hour of truly refined television entertainment this Friday night in a program acclaimed by critics worldwide. But looks can be deceiving. It's Dave Allen set to make his long-awaited return to Adelaide television in a riotous hour-long comedy special.
Daylight come and we wanna go home.
So take your seats for a very special edition of Dave Allen's 7:30 Friday on 7.
As dam to get there. We can do it, David.
Oh, I don't know. It'd be tough enough on a...